Hey guys, this is Techo Freak. Welcome to episode 5 of my custom story creation tutorial for Amnesia Rebirth. Today we're going to be talking about the most requested video, and that's scripting. We're going to talk about the basics of scripting, and we're going to just go over how the callbacks work in the new game, and how you guys can start working on writing some scripts for your levels. So let's go ahead and get started. So here we are in our document here. We have our program open and we have the starting room.hps file open. This is the script file for our map. In case you are unaware of how you get this, you can either create it and copy the stuff in there or type it up yourself. Or if you create the map and you start up the map without a script file in there, it should auto-generate one. And it should generate one that looks kind of like this one here. Just a bunch of slashes and words and stuff like that. So as a note, when there's like a slash like this, that implies that it's a comment and it doesn't actually run any code. So like if you go down here and you go / and you type in, nonsense or something like that, it doesn't actually do anything. So what we're going to do is just kind of remove all of this stuff. And I already did that here on our starting room class, but you would just go here and kind of just delete all of this junk, and we're gonna just kind of go over the functions ourselves. So here is our actual one for our actual map that we'll be running. Now let's talk about some of these functions, the default ones at least. So first thing, we have our setup function here. This runs as the level is loading up. And this is the perfect time to start up any set up any scripts or anything that you want to run here, if you want the player to not run. And we actually will do that, so I will put a line here. We're gonna do player set can't run, and we're gonna set that to false. We don't want the player to run when the level starts up for the first time, when the level's setting up. So I'll explain a little bit more why I'm doing that later, but this is just when it's setting up for the first time. Preload data, also void pretty much denotes that this function is not going to return any values. It's just going to run whatever's in it and return nothing. So just a note. Next is void preload data. Here is where you want to preload any textures or anything like that, so that the player can't, so that the player sees them as soon as he spawns in. This is typically only really used for particles, and typically it's just for the particles that are in the immediate eyesight of the player when he loads into the level. So if the player were to load into the level and there was smoke right in front of him, if you didn't have it preloaded, you might actually see the smoke load in after the fact. After the player loads into the level, you just see it pop up out of nowhere. So we don't want that. We want to preload it. So in that case, we would put it in preload data here. Yeah, pretty much that's the primary use for it. Just good to know. Next is on start. So when the level starts up for the first time, when the player actually spawns in and stands up, it runs this line. Then on enter, that's going to be when the player enters the level. So this will run every time the player re-enters the level, so not just when the level's first started. So this doesn't run when the level's first started. This runs whenever you enter the level from a different place, after you've been there before. So if you've been in the level before and you enter, then this is the stuff that's going to run here. Void on enter. And then void on leave, pretty self-explanatory here. When you leave the level, the code in here will run. On player killed, same thing here. Pretty self-explanatory. When the moment he is killed. On death, when the player dies, things that should run. So the moment right after. And then we have on respawn. So when after the player dies and he comes back to life and spawns in somewhere, it will run this stuff. On action, so this is typically just used for debugging, so you normally don't have to worry about this one. But pretty much on any action that the player does, you can call something to come up here. This is helpful for making sure that there's certain behavior going on when things are happening to the player. And then the last one is just to draw debug output. So so we're going to go ahead and we're gonna make some space here. We'll leave all of this up here, and we will come down here and we will do 2 slashes. Again, this is a comment. This is not actually any code that runs. And we're gonna do our functions, something like that, just so we know which line is our functions. Maybe we'll just put like some dashes here just to kind of make it easier to see that separation there. So our functions. So we're gonna put our functions below this line, and everything up here is just like things that are there by default, things that we want to initialize beforehand or when player enters and stuff like that. So yeah, so this is where we're gonna put our functions today. So let's go ahead and actually get started. I'm sure you guys are excited to see what we do. So we're going over the major types of functions in the game, or callbacks in the game, and it's gonna be we're gonna be doing, I believe, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, 5. We're gonna do show you 5 callbacks. I do have a bit of a script on the side here. I want to make sure that everything's written out properly and you guys have as much information as possible. So to make it as easy for you guys as possible, I don't want you guys to struggle. Scripting can definitely scare off a few people, especially people who are not the programming type. But trust me, it's not that bad. Once you start getting familiar with it, you can really just take off and start having some fun with it. So let's go ahead and get started here. So I think the first thing we're going to talk about, this is probably the more complicated one, but it's not that difficult, trust me. I'll explain it the best I can. I think you guys will be fine. We're going to be talking about collide callbacks here. So if you remember in the previous Amnesias, you can set up like a square area, and if you walk into that area, it will trigger something to happen, and that's what we're going to do here. Of course, it's going to be a little bit different than the previous Amnesias, but we'll go ahead and get through it here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to areas here, and we're going to do a trigger area, and we're going to go ahead and draw a square here. We'll bring it up here. I think it did it, but it kind of did it a weird shape here. So let's Control Z and redo that square here. So we want to do something like this. I want to bring it up. Let's do something like this. Okay, and let's just press it up against the wall here. All right. So here's what I'm thinking for this one. I haven't properly explained what I'm gonna do. So when the player, what I want is when the player spawns in, I want them to not be able to run, which we did in the code. If we bring this up here, we added this line here with player set can run false. We set that to false, so the player won't be able to run. And then what we want is that what we want to do is we want him to not be able to run here. Then once he gets past this wall area, we want him to be able to start running again. But initially, we kind of want him to just kind of walk slowly and kind of like look around and not really just start running right off the bat. So we're going to disable running initially when the player starts, and once he walks past this area, we'll be like, okay, fine, we'll let him run. So so we have this we have the area now. So let's go ahead and talk about the collide callbacks. So in this section here under area, we have a section called collide callbacks. So what this pretty much means, you specify all the entities you want to have that you want this thing to be able to collide with, and when it does collide with those objects, you return a function. You call a function in your script file. The one that we have right down here. You call a function in your script file and execute whatever's in there. So if you want to kill the player for some reason, or in this case, you want to make them be able to run again. So you can do whatever you want like that. So let me show you how that's done. So if you want this to collide with the player, you just type in player. If let's say you had other objects you wanted to collide with, you can put it in here. So like for example, just as an example, we have this chair over here, right? And it's called Arab chair 02, right? So let's just copy this just as an example. You could put a comma right here. You can paste it in right here. So now the chair can collide with this. as well, and then you can execute whatever function you want here as well from your script file. If any of these two objects collide, and you can do an infinite amount. It doesn't have to be this one either. So we'll go ahead and clear that. We just want to do a collision with the player. And now there is a bit of convention for the function names that the developers use. Of course, you're not obligated to use it, but I think it's a fairly good convention. It kind of helps you find your functions when you need them. And here, this is how they call it. So let's call this one trigger 1. Let's give it a proper name. I want to get rid of the capital in the beginning. Trigger 1, and then the convention for collision callbacks is this. It'd be on collide, and then in this case we're gonna have the player colliding with this this trigger object. So we'll put player, and then we'll put the name of the actual trigger here, and this would be trigger and then 1. So pretty much this is the naming convention. Of course, you can put whatever you want here, but this is the convention, and I think it's a good idea if you guys stick with it. So we wrote it down here, and now this is what we're gonna do. And I think this is super cool, super useful, and really great for beginners. If you just hit copy, and then we go back over to our development environment here. We said we're gonna put our functions underneath here. So go ahead and paste, and look at that. It wrote out our entire function. We don't even need to know what values we need to put in here or anything. We just copied and we pasted it, and there's our function, and we can already start working on our function. So I think that's super cool, super useful, super great for beginners, and definitely gonna help a lot of you guys out when you first start some of your scripting. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk about this first, what these values represent, and then I'll talk about kind of what you want to put on the inside of this here, like the framework of what you want to put inside of this. So first this is the type that you're going to be returning. So this is a boolean. If you're not familiar with what a boolean is, it's pretty much just true or false. So this function is expecting you to return true or return false. And I'll explain what the return true means, and I'll explain what the return false means in a moment. But first, let me just go over the main part here. So this is the same function name we gave it, on collide player trigger 1, and then these are the values that the level is gonna give your script when it runs this callback, this function. So the first one is a string with the variable name called parent, as parent, and then the next one is also a string with the variable name called as child, and the last one is called all state, and I'll explain what that one means in a moment, along with these two as well. But first, let's just talk about these first two. So the parent, the as parent, is the name of the object that is making the callback. So in this case, since now pull up the level editor here, since we told the trigger area, we have the collide callback here on the trigger area, this will be the parent, and the child will be whatever you put in here. In this case, it's player, but if you put like an object here, it could be like, chair or whatever, that would be the child, but that's what it is. So I'm going to copy over just to put a note here. I have, like I said, I have a little bit of a script on the side, just kind of make it easier to make sure I hit all the points and make no mistakes with you guys. I have it here. As parent, name of the object that has the callback, and as child is the name of the object that collided with the parent. I wrote this stuff myself, and I will be putting this script file, this entire script file, up on Pastebin for you guys to view and download if you want it, and copy from when you need it. So I want to note it and make sure you guys can see everything when you're doing your own maps. So that's what those two are here. That's just the names of those objects. And then the last one refers to the state that that the method was called from, that the function was called from. So if that makes no sense, which it might not if you haven't done this before, if you hover over here, you can see the description of it here, and I'm gonna have to keep my mouse here, but it says states 1 enter, -1 is leave. So if that value will either be 1 or it will be -1. And it will be 1 when the player enters it, and it will be -1 when the player leaves. So what we're gonna do here, we're gonna go under here, we're gonna do if, and then we're gonna do a open parentheses here, and we're gonna type in all state equals 1, and we'll hit the open bracket, and then under here we're gonna do else, and then another open curly brace, and hit enter again. So this is what pretty much we're what it pretty much means. So if alt state is equal to 1, so if the player just entered the trigger area, the object, then we're gonna do this. Otherwise, we're gonna do something else. Since this can only be 1 and -1, those are the only 2 possible states that can be returned, then else will have to be -1. So pretty much this is like, 1 or -1. So if it's 1, then it's the player just entered. If it's -1, then the player just left the area. So let me go ahead and again copy some of this info here just to kind of note it here, and that way you can see it on screen. Now let me actually zoom you guys in a little bit here so you guys can see a little better. This stuff will happen when the player enters the trigger area, and then I'll copy another bit here, paste it right in here, and this stuff will happen when the player leaves the trigger area. So pretty clear, pretty easy to read here. Anything you want to happen in those scenarios you put here. So now let's talk about this return true and return false thing here. So if we go back to the level editor here, I'll show you guys something here. If you hover over this function right here, you can see right there where it says if false is returned, callback is removed. So if you return false in this function here, then the callback will be removed. It won't be able to be executed again. So essentially it will just happen once. So if we only want it to happen once after the player enters, then we want to do return false here. And like I said, what we were gonna do is we're gonna make it so that the player can run again after he enters this area. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy this here, and I'll zoom you guys in again. Copy this here, and we'll paste it right here. And so player set can run. We want to change this to true. So when the player enters this trigger object, if the state is 1, which means he just entered it, then we will set that he can run. And then we will return false because we don't want this to run again. We just want it to be a one-time thing. We just set him to run, and that's it. We're done. Otherwise, if the state is -1, then we could do something else. In this case, we don't want to do anything else. So we can just return false here. In reality, we should never be leaving the area if we entered it first. So in reality, this will never run, but we have to return something here, so we will just return false, and then we'll hit save here. So that's pretty much it for this bit here. We can hop in our game and test it, but I do want to put one other thing here just to help you guys when you guys start scripting, and I'm going to put it right above here. And just follow along here for a second. We're going to do CLux, and then there's one that's called add debug message. So we're going to add this one, and pretty much what this is, in the debug menu, which we are booting into when we start up the game, we want to print out what's happening. So we're going to print a message, and I'm going to print the message disabling players running. That way we know that we've executed this properly and it is disabling the players running. So we're going to hit save here, and we're going to go ahead and hop in the game and test it out. But double check. I often make this mistake. Double check that you saved your map here. Let me switch your guys' view again. Make sure that when you switch to your level editor, it doesn't say modified up here. Make sure you actually save your level. If you don't save it, those changes obviously won't be applied because these settings won't be applied here. So make sure you save it. And then we'll go ahead and minimize this. Let's double check. As you can see, we forgot a semicolon right here. Let's add a semicolon. I often forget that too, so make sure you guys don't forget that. Put the semicolon there. Anyways, let's rerun it again and switch you guys over. All right, guys, here we are in our level. So we're gonna go ahead and just kind of walk around here, make sure we can't run. So clearly we can't run. I'm spamming the space bar. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna go through this plane right here, our trigger area. When we walk through here, at the bottom left, you're gonna see it about right here. You're gonna see the message that we wrote in there, and we should also be able to run after that. So let's go ahead and walk through. So you see the message right here. It says disabling players running. Now we should be able to run here, and we do. All right, we can run and everything. So we'll go ahead and stop here. We'll get back to the script. Let's go over some of the other callbacks. All right. So let's reopen our level over here, and let's talk about the other ones. So I'll mention which ones we're going to be talking about here. And these are much simpler. I think there's one that's a bit more complicated, but the others are pretty self-explanatory. So we'll click on the door here, and we're going to go under basic callbacks here. And then this shows you all the callbacks you can make, all the functions you can execute. So connection state change callback. So this is pretty much when the state of the object has changed. So typically, like let's say a candle has an on, off, and like a middle state where it's turning on. This is that same state right here. -1 for off, 0 for in between, and 1 for on. That's what this one is for. And there's player look at callback. So this is whether if the player is looking at it or not looking at it, you can run some kind of code. And then you have player interact callback. So when the player interacts with the object, something will happen. A function will run that we want. This is the exact opposite of this, pretty much. So when the player stops interacting with the object, it'll do something. And we're not going to talk about the receive message callback just yet. We haven't gone over messages yet, so we're going to talk about that probably in a later video when we talk about messages. So for now, we're just going to skip on that one. And then the last one that we're talking about today is going to be the on break callback function. So when the object is broken, it will execute some kind of a function. So let's go ahead and talk about all of these. So let's start, I guess, with the on break. I think that's probably the simplest one here. So the on break, we're gonna put a function in here. So this one has the formatting as well. So this one is on break, and then we'll do underscore, and then the object that's gonna be broken. So in this case, it's gonna be bottle 1. So this is the object that we want. This is the function we're gonna call back. Again, you don't have to have this be the function. You can do whatever you want here, but this is just the convention, and we're just gonna stick to it because it is pretty easy to read. So we have that there. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna hit copy here, and we're gonna come back to our script here, and go ahead and paste that in. So here's our script. Let's paste it right underneath our collide function here that we have. We'll paste it right here. And skip down here, and then we have our function here. So I will talk about all these, but I think I want to first name them all first, copy them all in here, and then we'll go run through all of them and talk about all of them. So let's go ahead and set the other ones. So we're gonna do on this door. We're gonna do a look at callback. So this one has a convention just like all the other ones. This one's on look at, and then underscore, and then it's going to be the name of the object. So I'm going to call this door underscore 1. So it's going to be door underscore 1 right here. And that's there. So now let's go ahead and copy this. And then let's bring it over to our editor here. We'll paste it right under here, and we'll add the same spacings here. All right, and then let's move on to make some new space here. Move on to the next one. So open up the level editor here. We're gonna do a interact callback on this one as well. And just as a note for this callback here, if you look at this setting here, it says should look at be removed when the entity is looked at and callback is called. So this essentially does that same thing as that true or false returning in that collision. But in this case, we can just hit a checkbox, which is pretty good. In this case, we don't want to remove it. We want it to always run. Just for the example I'm going to give. But if you only wanted this to happen once, just check it, and that way it would only happen once. And there's some other settings here if you want the player. If you want it to only be if the player is looking at the center, or if it's just in his field of view. And then this is whether or not he's looking directly at it, or if he's looking at it through like a wall or something. You can toggle this here. All right, for the next one is the player interact callback. So for this one, same as the others, so it's convention. This one has on interact underscore, and then it's gonna be the name of the player, and he's gonna be interacting with this object, which is called door. So then it's gonna be door underscore 1, and then this one, we're not gonna do this one. This is the exact same as this, but like the opposite, when the player stops interacting with the door. So it's going to be identical to this. All it does is instead it will happen when we stop interacting. And this button here, same thing. You can disable the function from being run again if you only want it to happen once here. And like I said, we're going to skip this message callback here. All right, so that's the ones for the door. So let's go ahead and copy these and get them in our code as well. So I think we did the look at door already. So let's get the other one, this one, the interact callback, and let's get our code here, let's paste it in there, and let's, give it the usual formatting and hit enter there. All right, we'll hit enter here, make some space for the next one. So this is the I believe this is the last one we're gonna do, but it's pretty much done all of them. We're gonna do all of them except for the message one, and it's gonna be the on connection state changed here, and this is the one I was talking about, which is the next kind of complicated one out of the rest. But again, I'll explain it pretty clearly. Make sure you guys understand how this works. And for connection state callback, we're gonna give it a name, and this one has, same as all the others, a convention. It's on connection state change, and then it's underscore, and then the name of the object. So we're gonna call this candle1. Again, just to make it simple for ourselves here, and we'll call it candle underscore 1 here. So that's all written up there, and then we'll hit copy on it here, and we'll go over to our editor here, and let's paste it in there, and let's hit tab, enter, just space that out, and there we go. All right, so these are all the major ones we're going to be talking about today, and I think these are all of them except for the message one. If I miss any, we'll probably go over it in a future video, but this is about all the collisions here. And now let's talk about what we're going to put inside of them here. So for the ones that have t-string as entity, so in this case, on break bottle 1, entity just pretty much is the name of the bottle. So let's get let me just copy and paste that definition right here for you guys to have it here. So as entity is just the name of the bottle here, and pretty much, since there's no state or anything, we can just start doing whatever we want here. So as soon as the bottle breaks, anything in here will happen. What I want to do, I don't really have any code I want to do, anything specific I want to happen for this on break. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna print a debug message, and it's just gonna say the bottle broke. The bottle broke, just to let us know that it ran this successfully and the bottle broke. Next is the on look at door. So this one does have an all state, and if again, you could always find these just by going to here and clicking on it. You hover over it, you'll see there's state 1 and state -1. 1 is looking at the door, -1 is not looking at the door. So just like the other one, we're gonna make a similar line here. We'll say, if all state, and then we'll say equals 1. Then that means that we're looking at the door. So let's just paste the comment here so we know that this stuff will happen when the player is looking at the door. And then we'll do an else here, and we'll do, so if it's not 1, then it's got to be -1. So then this is stuff that's going to happen in the when you're not looking at the door. So we're going to copy the comment as well here, and that way we know what we're doing there. So let's add a debug message here too, just to kind of print out that information. We'll say, I don't know, player is looking at the door. All right, and then for this one, we'll just copy this and we'll say player is not looking at the door. And we'll paste that in there. I'll say nope, not looking at the door. Okay, so when the player is not looking at the door, we'll print out this message. So you could put whatever you want in here, kill player, entity, remove, whatever you want here. This is your place to start doing whatever you want to happen in your level. All right, so that's pretty much that. And I noticed that these are void, unlike the first one here, which was bool. Void pretty much means that we're not returning anything, so we can just do whatever we want inside, and that's it. When we move on, we don't have to return anything. This is void as well, so we just said, we just say what we want to happen for either one of those states, and we're done. We move along. So now on interact player door, this is another void, so we don't have to return anything here. In this case, entity is just the door itself. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy the line here. So this is the on interact. So copying this here. So on interact. So it's the as entity is the name of the object that is being interacted with. I think I forgot to put the one for this one here too, but essentially they're about the same thing. The as entity is usually the one that's making the callback. So so for the on look at door, it's the exact same thing here. It'd be the door. So let's copy that here, and then there it is. So again, just for explanation and stuff like that. So this one again is a void. We don't have an all state for this one, so we can just start doing whatever we want. So as soon as the player interacts with the door, we want something to happen, we do it here. So we'll just do the same thing as this one. We'll print out a message, and this message is just going to be player interacted with the door. All right, and the player interacted with the door, and I'll print. Let me get rid of this. I don't know why I don't want the period there, so I'm going to remove the period there. And next is going to be the on connection state changed. So let me get this open here. So what we're gonna do is just make some notes of this one. This one's probably the most complicated, not really. I'll walk you guys through it. So as entity, same thing as the other ones. The entity is the one that's making the callback. So in this case, it's the candle. That's the name here. And we do have an all state for this one. And if you remember, let's go back to our level letter. If you remember, if we go to the candle, we hover over here, or connection state, you notice that it has 3 states. It has -1, 0, and 1. So we want to account for all of those states. Let's go back to our code here, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna do just like the other ones. We're gonna do if, and then we'll do all state is equal to 1. And then we'll probably, what we'll do, we'll probably, since this is the void method, we don't have to return anything. We just have to do what we want. So we'll do if, and then we'll close, and we'll go like this, and we'll say all state is equal to 0. And then we go underneath that. We say if, and then we go down here. We go alt state is equal to -1. And there we go. So now paste again, same thing here. Paste that there. So that's the one state means that what will happen when the candle is turned on. The 0 means what will happen while the candle is turning off or on. Either one, it's changing states essentially. And -1 is what will happen when the candle is turned off. So these are the 3 right here. You can again put whatever you want inside of here, whatever you want to happen. So and again, we don't have to return anything since this is void. Just a bit, if you're familiar with programming, you would know that, you know, if it can only be 3 things, it can only be 1, it can only be 0, and it could be -1. So we've already checked that it's 1 and that it's 0. We really don't have to check that it's -1. So normally you wouldn't even have to do this. You could just write what you want down here. But just for clarity for anybody who hasn't scripted before, I just want to make sure it's very clear what we're doing and kind of just piece everything properly so for you guys to see exactly how everything is going to work. So we're going to make some space here, and we're going to add these debug messages. And I just caught myself on this already. I did not put any of these semicolons here, so make sure you get those semicolons on there. After any line like this that you mentioned, you have to put them like that unless it's like a function. So make sure you get those semicolons on there. So let me go ahead and copy this, and we'll put it in here, and we'll make a mention as to what's happening here. So candle just turned on, and we'll copy this one and paste it here, and then we'll say candle just, we'll say change states, and then for the last one we'll say just turned off. All right, so that's all in there. There's pretty good outline for these and how they work, I think. If it's too confusing, let me know in the comments, and I can go over some more stuff if it seems too confusing. But I think it was pretty straightforward, and we can you know, now start executing code. Of course, you don't have to print debug messages. You can do whatever you want inside of this stuff. Like for example, let's say you wanted to despawn an entity, you do, you know, entity set active, and you know, like let's say you wanted to remove the door, you say door 1 or whatever, and then you put comma, and then what do you want it to do here? So we want it to be unactive, so we say false. So if you know, if we look at the door, it's pretty funny, it's just gonna disappear. So of course we don't want to do that. I'm just kind of outlining that, but you can from this point you can pretty much take off and start doing whatever you want with these. We'll go ahead and save, and let's test this. Let me make sure I got all my semicolons on these lines here. It looks like I do. And again, I always like to double check. Just double check we have the map saved. As you can see, we don't have it saved. If we run it now, it's not gonna work. So we'll save it now, and we'll go ahead and minimize, and let's give this code a launch. All right. So we'll hit F7. We'll launch it, and we'll switch you guys over as well. All right. So we're back in our level. So let's go ahead and check out our new callbacks that we have here. So we are gonna be testing out the looking at door. We're gonna test out the candle. We're gonna test out the bottle as well. So let's go ahead and give the door a look. And you can see at the bottom left it says players looking at the door. We could look off. The player is not looking at the door. So that look at function looks right. And if we look and look off, you can see that it's working. The interaction, let's do the interaction. So if we grab this door right here, you can see it says player interacting with the door. If we grab it again, player is interacting with the door. Next, let's try the bottle. So if we grab the bottle, we should be able to grab it, and then just go ahead and drop it, and we should get a message there too. And there it goes. You can see the bottle broke. So that's working fine. And then the last thing is the candle. So let's go ahead and get those matchboxes back here. And then let's head back. Let's go ahead and light it up. We should see that say something. And okay, candle just turned on. Let's go ahead and turn it off. Candle just turned off. So yeah, so that works too. And yeah, so those are all the basic callback functions. I'm sure you guys kind of like the template of how to set it up and everything. I think I explained it pretty well. I think I got it kind of just outlined for everybody to just kind of start, you know, formatting and start writing in whatever they want to happen. So I hope this was clear. If for any reason any of you guys thinks it was a little confusing or anything, I don't mind having another video talking about it, or maybe talking about just specific ones, giving better examples. But we will be doing a lot of stuff with this stuff going down the line, so this won't be the first time you see any of this stuff. I'm planning a whole bunch of things, but for now we're gonna have to talk about some other topics, and then we'll start working on some of these cool things. So I'm excited. I'm not 100% sure what the next video will be about. We do have a lot to cover, so just stay tuned. We got a lot of cool stuff still on the way. Let me know what cool things you want to do with this, with the scripting. You know, enemies. We got scripting for like object spawning. We can turn off lights and stuff like that. We can do a lot. So let me know what you guys want to see. Leave a like on the video, comment on the video, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and thanks a lot for watching, guys. Have a good one.